And welcome back to episode 82 of the Weekly Tech Rant with me, Jay.
And me, Carl. What's going on there?
I have no idea what did happen there. Like it wanted to play again. Well, that's
So good, we've been introed twice.
the gremlins are all about. I mean, just before we came on air, I managed to delete music off the soundboard. I have no idea what's going on. Anyway, yes, it's episode 82 of the Weekly Tech Rant. Thanks for joining us again as we talk through the latest tech stories of the week. And what a week it's been once more. We have got a large roundup of tech stories. We've got some updates to some stuff we spoke about last week from the Lapsus hacks. We've got Apple, we've got Google, we've got Wise, and we've got Intel. And yes, the rumour mill is back again. So then, Carl, let's kick off the first story of the week on Lapsus and Globant, which I think broke just as after we came off air last week, didn't it?
Yeah, we mentioned actually at the tail end of last week, so it kind of broke as we were actually on air. But yes, so obviously we discussed last week that the UK police had arrested 7 individuals, didn't they, ranging from age of 16 up to 21, and they were potentially meant to be the masterminds behind Lapsus. It seems that it's not over. So yeah, as we mentioned, Globant, who are
Globant,
kind of a Luxembourg-based. Yeah, Luxembourg-based IT and software development firm. They've now released a statement on Wednesday saying that they've experienced a network breach, and actually Lapsus are claiming they're behind it. On their Telegram channel, the Telegram channel is still up and running, but yeah, they are claiming they're responsible for the breach, and actually I posted a torrent link to 70 gigabytes of source code, isn't it? And it contains data for an Apple Health app, Facebook, C-SPAN, DHL, which I presume are all kind of clients of Globant. And even another post on the same channel was actually reported to show login credentials for their network with many, many weak passwords.
So this is kind of the question, is it, around this Lapsus group? So as you said, last week news broke that here in the UK at least they'd arrested, wasn't it, a teenager who was supposedly the head of the organisation, wasn't it? And
Yep.
his whereabouts and identity had already been known to several research groups, but due to his age, it wasn't really ethical to release that until he got doxed by his own group, it seemed, didn't it? But yeah, this is kind of the Hydra effect again, isn't it? We talked like the anonymous thing we talked about last week, where you chop one head off and it carries on going. So the group still exists. Clearly, there are others in the group who are keen to continue the work they're doing. But what's really been noticed here as well, isn't it, in this particular hack with Globant, is the attempts that have been made to get the data, really does echo kind of script kiddie cat tactics. It's kind of social engineering as well, isn't it? And almost a little bit brute force to a degree, isn't it? And I don't mean brute force password. I mean as in brute force social engineering. Because one of the Lapsus members apparently wrote on one of the Telegram channels that they've been doing call bombing and MFA prompt bombing as well on unsuspecting employees to gain information. So they've obviously a quote here: no limit is placed on the amount of calls that can be made, says the Lapsus member. Call the employee 100 times at 1 a.m. while he's trying to sleep, he'll more than likely accept it. Once the employee accepts the initial call, you can accept the MFA token enrollment portal and enroll another device. Because they're doing SIM swaps, I say they're doing the social engineering. They're doing all kinds of stuff here, which is, I guess, not unorthodox is the wrong word because it's all unorthodox. But I guess compared to the classic, we've breached your systems, we're doing lateral movements across the thing, we're keeping very quiet. They're making a lot of noise still, aren't they, around their methods?
An awful lot. I mean, obviously we had the arrest in the UK, but they're making so much noise now. The FBI have even put out a request asking for the public for assistance in locating or identifying these individuals.
Yeah, definitely not going to go away anytime soon. And really, the group here operating South America, operating in the US, we think, operating in the UK, we know. So yeah, very, very peculiar, really, isn't it, of this kind of thing. But as said before, it isn't, it's not that it's a nation state actor as kind of rumored. It definitely is a group of individuals, some of which are teenagers, some of which probably are adults, whoever, that are keen to continue publicizing their tactics, their attacks. And Globant is the latest in, I suspect, what is going to carry on being a long list of companies, isn't it? But I did have to look up who Globant were when you said they were Luxembourg. I hadn't heard of them, but yeah, you say based in Luxembourg, but apparently founded in South America, though, in Buenos Aires.
Oh, so they're fairly big. They seem to operate in 18 countries, have over 23,000 employees. So they're not a small time company.
No, not at all, not at all. But just one I hadn't heard of. Yeah, definitely. But
No,
very curious. But yeah, Lapsus. I'm sure more of this is going to come out. But yeah, so data. So that's, was it 70 gig of stolen data was published? Was that, I think, overall? Was that the amount?
it was. Yeah, in a torrent file. Yeah,
nuts, absolutely nuts. So, so talking about US government getting up happy then. So Google is another company on the receiving end of a probe from the US Department of Justice around Google Maps, apparently then.
Well, yeah, this is a continuation. So this first popped up back in late 2020. Yeah, the US Justice Department stated that they started a probe into Google Maps and basically determine if bundling the service together with other Google software illegally stifles competition. So, AKA what Microsoft did with Internet Explorer, and it all went very quiet for a while. But now it's picked up again. The probe is in full swing, for want of a better word there. And yeah, the US Justice Department are really looking into, I suppose, two main points. So you said the first one really focuses on the app. So the main one being navigation. And for in-car stuff. So it's the navigation kit that goes in the car for like Android Auto, Google Maps built into the head units. So basically, Google asks you to use their automotive services package for automakers, and basically includes search, the maps, Google Play App Store, Google Assistant, other services. But the big one here is car companies are then prevented from, for example, maybe mixing Google Maps with voice assistants developed by their rivals. So basically, it's an all or nothing. You have Google Maps, you have to take the voice assistant, the Play Store, the other services, and you can't use the competition. Otherwise, you can't use the maps.
Yeah, so this isn't kind of like Google Maps is a problem, you shouldn't bundle it on a device. As you say, this is antitrust in the sense that anti-competitiveness of bundling it into the physical device, in this case, a car, rather than anything else. I mean, I have to say, bundling it together, as I said, isn't it? Bundling together with another product isn't an antitrust. It's whether or not that limits competition, isn't it? So as you say, Internet Explorer back in the 90s, because it stifled competition from Netscape, didn't it? And Netscape Navigator, and that kind of thing. And Google aren't immune to this, as we know, because of the bundling of services. Apple obviously have had a similar state, but Google is more prevalent, and we've seen that across the board. I mean, I'll give you an example the other day. My grandfather, who is in his late 80s, was wanted to get a sat nav in the car, and I was like, "Well, your phone does that," and he was like, "Does it?" And I was like, "Oh, here we go." And he was like, "Okay." Yeah. Next time I came back and saw him, he'd downloaded the TomTom app because he recognised TomTom. He used to have a TomTom sat nav, and he was like, "Oh, this is terrible." He wants to charge, I don't know, £3 a month or something to use it. I was like, "What are you downloading that for?" I was like, Google Maps will do it, and I showed him Google Maps directions, and he was like blown away. Now, obviously you and I and many of our listeners fully aware that does that, but he's 88 years old, and he was like, "This is amazing." It's like,
but even the £3 a month on TomTom was like, "But we're going to spend £200 on the sat nav."
Yeah, exactly. But so it was kind of the same thing. But in my car, your car, we've got CarPlay. Not Android Auto, but that my car and yours, I know for a fact, has a built-in mapping service as well, doesn't it? That comes with the car.
It does, BMW's navigation service, whatever it's called.
And leveraging Google, or whether you're doing it through CarPlay, obviously isn't infringing on that because it's not built in. But I don't know how many. I guess I wonder how many automakers have bundled this in at native level. I suppose quite a few. I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, mine BMW. I think they own. Is it Here Maps?
Yeah,
along with a number of other car makers. So that's the one it's based on, built in. But yeah, you're right. I'm just using CarPlay or Android Auto to beam my phone display to the display in the car. So yeah, not inbuilt. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe other manufacturers are.
Volvo comes to mind. I'm pretty confident that Volvo and Polestar, the electric company.
Yes, they're a spin-off of Volvo, aren't they?
Yeah, I believe I'm sure I read something before that they're natively built in. It's got a built-in Google system.
Okay.
But whether or not, I'm guessing you can install other apps. I don't know. Not driven a new Volvo for some time, but I suppose it's no different to the built-in system on the BMW where you can install terrible apps.
They're all rubbish. They're all rubbish.
But yeah, I get it. I guess from the US government's point of view, isn't it? As if it's stifling competition if you're not allowed to do that, and especially from their point of view around the search action. And as we all know, voice voice AI and those assistants,
assistants,
is where the money is, isn't it? The data, the analytics. You are the product at the end of the day. That's why it's free. You don't pay for Alexa. You don't pay for. I can't say the words because it'll go off in front of me.
Indoors, yeah.
It'll, that's what we're the product. You're telling it stuff that they want to hoover up in here, isn't it? So Google in this case clearly want to keep that away from the competition.
They do. I mean, and actually, there was a second point to the probe, but along those, it's around website developers. So specifically, if if the website you've built is using one of Google's technologies, say their location search, they basically say the website or the app developer cannot use maps or other technologies developed by Google's rivals. So if you're using their location for maybe GeoIP or whatever to figure out where your user is, you can't then go and use somebody else's mapping.
Yeah, that's very nice of them. Very, very, very kind of them.
Yeah. Basically, you use all of their services or none of their services.
Yeah, you basically lump it. I like it or lump it, as I said. And I just do you not feel at the moment like big tech is just all about antitrust at the minute? From every bit of legal news that comes out around big tech is company XYZ antitrust, company XYZ monopolistic, company XYZ a stifling competitor. It's all the same kind of story, just a different slant, isn't it?
It is, and we get it from both sides of the pond, aren't we? In the US and in the EU, it's everywhere.
It is just absolutely everywhere. It's just completely and utterly, coming from all directions, and there's no let up. Anyway,
no, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one. I think it's because the governments just didn't really do anything early enough, did they?
Well, let's run away.
So now it's so far out of control, and the tech companies are doing just what they want, and now all the governments are trying to catch up with this.
Well, of course they are, aren't they? They're all trying to catch up with it. They're all trying to monetize it, because it's a massive, massive, massive untapped pool of money, taxes, and all kinds of legislation. And as you say, big tech, and not just big tech, other industries have run away from them. And I guess if if you go back to a history, it's no different to transportation, is it? It's no different to energy, those kind of things, oil companies, that kind of stuff, and finance. Big tech is just the latest in a long line of areas where the governments feel that, as you say, they haven't got enough control in that market space.
You're right. I think it just seems that nowadays with the government, they're just so, I want to say, tech illiterate when it comes to actually understanding the tech, and then they try and put policies in place to control it when they don't really understand it. It's just going to be a mess.
Yes, and we see that very close to home here in the UK, won't we?
Yes, we have.
A few people in government at the moment in serious senior positions who do not have a clue. But anyway, I digress. So then, Apple, moving from Google, Apple. So last week we talked around Apple recently purchased this new, well, I say new, made a new purchase and acquire of a bank, haven't they, in the UK around. Was that last week or the week before? Actually, I think it might be the week before.
I couldn't actually find it in my notes. We've talked about it, but I could not find it in my notes.
I know we talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
they're not necessarily a bank. They're more of a fintech company. They're kind of using the open banking standards.
Well, they had a banking. I think they got banking license, didn't they? Yeah. So that's right. So they recently did that. So there's rumor then to come around what is it? Project Breakout then, which is Apple apparently developing own payment processing technology and infrastructure for potential new financial products. Then this sounds interesting. I guess it does come off the back of what we did talk around, which was the possible new subscription service, wasn't it?
It did, and obviously the people that have leaked this have asked not to be identified, so it's one of those. But it's so it's basically a multi-year plan, and they want to bring a lot of their financial tasks in-house. So payment processing, which they do a lot of themselves, risk assessment for lending, fraud analysis, credit checks, and kind of additional customer service functions such as handling disputes on those payments. But they are saying it's for their future products and not their current lineup. But still, the news didn't go down so well in certain circles, did it? I mean, it did send the shares of Core Card and Green Dot, two of Apple's existing partners, down by more than 8%. And even Goldman Sachs dropped 1.2% on this news.
Really? I mean, Goldman got worried, seriously. Well, their shareholders got worried, I should say,
Well, maybe Apple put an awful lot. I suppose, don't they underpin the Apple Card in the US?
They do,
They underpin a lot of other stuff. But, obviously, only in the US. A lot of Apple's financial products are only available in the US.
I think pretty much all of them, bar the Apple Upgrade program, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Because in the UK, Barclays and PayPal are their main financial providers, aren't they?
Yeah, Barclays, don't they do that's the iPhone upgrade program, isn't it? Barclays?
Yeah, and also, the finance if you want to buy a studio.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the interesting bits, Apple, well, obviously, other than expanding outside the US only for a lot of their services, they're also looking at introducing things, or allegedly introducing things like buy now, pay later feature on Apple Pay transactions. So, when you currently do your double tap to do your Apple Pay, obviously you can choose a card, can't you, and blah, 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 and authorize it. But they want to give you the option at that point to either spread those payments interest-free across 4 payments spaced every 2 weeks apart, so basically pay over 2 months, or across several months, but with interest. At that time that you go and buy it.
That's interesting. I suppose. Funny enough, I saw something the other day. I was paying my Barclay card off, and they had a thing on that where you can move to an installment plan. Similar to what you've just described here. As you say, predefined. But yeah, it's interesting that Apple kind of looking at that. But again, it keeps you in the ecosystem, doesn't it? It keeps you locked in.
It does. I mean, my bank does that. I'm with Starling, and you can do it after the fact. So if you buy a large item on your card, I don't know, let's say a new oven or TV or something, you can retrospectively go back and say, oh, you know what, I'd like to pay for that with over X number of months, and then they obviously refund the money into your account and set up a payment plan all within the app itself.
That's pretty clever. I didn't know they did that. Oh, okay.
I've not actually used it, but that's what the blurb says.
No. But I mean, I'm all for kind of any ways to do it. Obviously, I get kind of a bit nervous when I see a lot of these payments. What's it for Klarna and all the other stuff? That.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere, aren't they?
I do worry for some people, but yeah, I mean, just on the premise of additional features and capabilities, looking at it from that point of view, it's an interesting touch. And like you say, definitely if fintech and challenger banks like Starling are doing that, then yeah, I'm sure Apple would want to be in that space, really.
I suppose wonder if you're doing it at the time of purchase, how much longer will that add, and then what happens if you get declined? This just gets messy at the till, doesn't it?
Oh dear. But I guess you wouldn't do it at time. You'd only do it online at time of purchase, surely.
Yeah. Maybe it's only online or in an Apple store kind of thing, and not your traditional supermarkets
that's
Curry's, Comet. Comet doesn't exist anymore, but you know what I mean.
Like your Best Buy, that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely. I think it's more online, as you say, or Apple. Probably definitely Apple Store. You'll go in.
Yeah.
How do you want to pay for this? I'll put an Apple card. Oh, right. Do you know you can do this? We can all. I guess the blurb from the salesperson, wouldn't it? Would be we offer this now. Would you like me to set this up for you? It's usually the words. But so I mean, will Apple be doing that or themselves with its capabilities, or will they still be leaning on their financial partners such as Goldman Sachs or Barclays?
Well, I presume they want to do it themselves. I suppose they need that speed. If they're doing it all themselves, they can. They've probably pre-approved you already for certain limits, I imagine, because they know your information. They had the in-house capabilities to do that. So I imagine they can do this all themselves.
Yeah, and I suspect, if anything, this probably will be aligned with that device subscription service we talked about, because this is probably going to underpin that, isn't it?
I imagine so. Yeah.
Because if you can provide a device subscription service and the payment processing / management of it underneath, then you want to keep it all in house. So I don't think 2022 is the launch for this. Probably 23 onwards, perhaps. Would you agree?
Yeah, I suppose it depends how far down they are. I mean, they also know that they just bought that new company, but I imagine that wasn't out of the blue. I imagine they're already fairly far down that path, and then they just needed to add or supplement that expertise.
Yeah, definitely. Those kind of purchases are not knee jerk, are they? There's quite a lot of planning involved and due diligence and assessment of the organization before that, wouldn't they? So yeah,
And
you're right.
I'm pretty sure the rental one was meant to be US only to start off with, wasn't it? So
Yeah,
maybe they're going to leverage their current partners for this year and look to move to do it themselves globally next year.
probably. It would seem logical to do that, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Okay, well, we will be interested to see that when they ever launch it. I still have two minds on whether the Apple Card will ever show up in the UK. Part of me debates that it won't, based on as we've talked about before, the legislation here. I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see how they'd get around some of that. And what would they offer that was different? That's the other thing,
But then I say, if it's historically, the UK has been one of the first ones to launch outside the US for any Apple services, including things like iPhone upgrade programs. So I don't know.
But how long's Apple Card been out now, though?
Oh, it's going to be 2 or 3 years, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, moving on to another Apple story then. So this one kind of links a little bit back to the first story on the security and breaches, wasn't it? So it turns out then that Apple allegedly handed over customer data then to hackers who were masquerading as law enforcement officials then, according to a story out of Bloomberg recently. And it wasn't just Apple though, was it? It was also Meta. Oh dear.
Meta and potentially Snapchat, though they haven't actually confirmed for sure they did it, but it's looking likely.
This is egg on your face, isn't it? Around oh dear. I mean,
it's come from the people familiar with the matter, as it usually does.
I love those words.
That's just a get out of jail free for everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
But basically, the company's provided what they call basic subscriber details for requests that have come in. I think they're called emergency data requests, aren't they? So usually you need a warrant or a subpoena in the US to signed by a judge to get access to the company's customer data, but they can use these emergency data requests to kind of bypass that when it's an emergency. But apparently these hackers have been used to forge data requests to get access to this data.
Yeah, so these, as you say, these requests then are being forged. Clearly, they're not genuine. Was it in the group known as Recursion team behind them? However, some of the research team people involved in this have a suspicion that they could also be part of the Lapsus group, don't they? There's some concerns that they actually could be the Lapsus group or members of said group doing this again. And you know what? Considering what we were talking about earlier, the social engineering tactics rather than the classic, hacking, I'm not surprised. It's very possible here, isn't it? The MO is similar.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the key one with these is the people are trying to be helpful, aren't they? It's an emergency request. We're trying to stop something. We need this data, and it's human nature to try and go, right, okay, we need to do that, and it doesn't need a court order to get this. It's just a request that comes in from these agencies. I don't think they can get as much data as you normally would with a full, signed search warrant or subpoena, but it's probably enough to get you what you want if you're using it for hacking.
Yeah, and but all the companies that we mentioned here publish, the data from the compliance requests, and so apparently Apple then had received nearly 1,200 emergency requests, which was in the period of July to December 2020, and they responded to 93% of them. Facebook, ridiculous amount. Facebook had nearly 22,000 from January to June 21. And they responded to approximately 77% of those requests. So you're right. It doesn't take a lot for just a fraudulent one to slip through the net, does it?
Yeah.
Maybe we should try it. No, I didn't say that.
I imagine, a lot of these bureaus or agencies are abusing this to bypass having to go through court and prove why they need it.
I think they are. And again, that's just a speculation.
That's an awful lot of emergency requests.
Yeah, if you can get the information you want without going through that whole long process of dragging, yourself through a court process and getting declined, literally doing a nationwide one, an emergency one, excuse me, coming from an official email address. Now I say official loosely, yeah,
Yeah, very easy to forge.
yeah, it's going to slip through the net. So, I'm not surprised. What concerns me now, though, is if they were to analyze these and go back through that process, how many would they find which are, not genuine? That's the concern, isn't it?
Very
But
worrying numbers, I reckon.
yeah, but then on the other hand, it could just be talk about a problem that hasn't existed before today.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, but it at the end of the day, it's a phishing attempt, isn't it? And it's been a successful one.
Yeah, very.
It depends on what information they got, though. That's the other information, though. It's because obviously it doesn't state; it just says customer information.
No, it doesn't.
I wonder whether or not this was a targeted spearfish, so to speak, in the sense that they were going after particular data. Would seem likely,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
it's enough to get addresses, phone numbers, personal email addresses out of it, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this to me sounds like a targeted attack for particular individuals.
Yeah.
For them to get, and whether or not that's relevant to other attacks that they've done. It could be linked, couldn't it? It could be part of other attacks that they've done where they're trying to fill in the blanks. Who knows? But that information, I suspect, will not come out unless there's a law, a court case or something that's relevant to it. But yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. So, Apple indeed, to keep the theme of Apple then. So, the Dutch dating debacle. Oh, that's a good one. The Dutch dating debacle rolls on then, doesn't it then? And Apple want to close that kind of, I guess, problem. Is that the way to describe it?
Yep, another week, another €5 million fine.
Ka-ching!
But there has been progress of a sorts. So Apple has allegedly given up on its insistence of the separate binaries, because I don't know if you remember back, if you were going to use a third-party payment processor in the Netherlands for your dating apps, you had to have two copies of the app.
That's
one
right,
with the Apple payment processor and one with your third-party processor. But no, apparently that is gone. You can have one app now with the two payment processors inside. You're still going to have to pay Apple 27% and report your sales figures to Apple from those third parties. Yeah, but this hasn't been accepted yet, has it? This is
no.
The next steps apparently are to show this agreement to the market participants for consultation. If they accept the terms, then Apple may avoid any further fines or escalations, and it will go into law or whatever we're calling it.
And Apple, as part of this, so Apple have published the mock-ups or the draft of what it looks like. So if you click on the app, it'll pop up saying that this app doesn't support the App Store's payment system, and then there's a blurb of text saying that the purchases are managed by the developer, and basically we're going to scare you because you're not transacting with Apple. Your information and purchases, subscription data will not be available. Apple is not responsible for the privacy or security of the transactions. So basically, you're on your own. A little bit heavy-handed, but I suppose it's covering their back for this. But I guess
I suppose the consumers are probably so used to dealing with it through Apple that this will be quite a change for them, and I suspect they won't really read what's going on and still try and blame Apple if something goes wrong with the payment processing.
Nope, that's exactly what's going to happen, isn't it? Because so give it how many weeks before somebody complains that something doesn't work, or they've been stiffed on the payments or whatever, or their credit card details been stolen.
Or their child has run up lots of bills of in-app purchases
in a dating app.
Well, I suppose, yeah. I was just thinking further afield when it escapes just the dating apps. But yeah,
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that. But yeah, you're right. But I guess after dropping €50 million on it, is that Apple's penance for this? Is it okay? We're willing to comply now. We've had enough fun with you.
I'm not sure these market participants are going to fully agree to this 27%.
No, I'm not at all. And I think considering that the EU's Digital Markets Act that we talked about as well recently is now up and running in terms of discussion perspective, this is just going to add fuel to the fire, isn't it? And more so, more so, given Apple's non-compliant state, it's just going to rile those regulators even more.
It'd be interesting to find out what these participants actually think they should pay the Apple Store or Apple for. Just in general, what do you think Apple's value is adding here that you should pay them for this?
Well, you know for well what the answer would be, don't you?
No, zero, obviously.
Yeah, of course it is, because they don't want to pay anything, which is ludicrous because nothing is free. No service is free. Whether you leverage Apple, whether you leverage, who's another payment provider? I don't know, WorldPay. I don't know. Even if you leverage Visa or Square or SumUp or any of the the challengers, you're still paying for it. None of them are free. They're taking a small percentage cut, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, taking 3 or 4%, aren't they, for the payment processor? But if you think Apple just do more than that, they're also hosting your app, distributing it, and all the other bits and pieces. So how much more than the 4% should they be paid for doing all those extra bits on top? And also providing you the platform to sell it on, because the payment processors don't do that either, do they? You have to build your own web shop and all that kind of stuff if you're talking traditional e-commerce.
It's exactly. And what Apple gives you is the ecosystem, the all-in support, isn't it? The ability
the
not
dev tools.
Dev tools. You don't have to service any infrastructure. It's all there ready to roll, isn't it? That's probably the value here. But I don't know. I mean, they're not, the dating apps in the Netherlands, however, are not the only change here, isn't it? Because Apple have also kind of capitulated and are now going to let what they're calling reader apps, aren't they?
Yes.
So includes Kindle, Amazon Kindle, Netflix, Spotify can now all link to their own sites from inside the apps themselves, isn't it?
They can. So that's that. Just putting a link. It's not building their own third-party payment in. And this is global, isn't it? Not just this is global. So but this is basically about putting a link to the site that someone can click on and then go and pay there. But there are, of course, requirements and hoops to jump through, be it's Apple. So the link must open in a separate browser process, not an in-app web view, because that way you can disguise it to look like you're doing it in the app. Interestingly, you can't pass any data or parameters to the website from the app. So it's just like literally click on the link with no referral bits. You also can't. The app can't contain text explaining how much things on your website will cost. So you can't say it costs, I know, £20 within the app, but if you go to our website, it's only going to cost 15 or 10 or whatever it is. And of course, you need to apply for an entitlement before you can add the link.
Oh, Apple!
And I think you'll probably need one of those pages like for the in-app purchase as well.
Yeah, so you're about to basically warning, klaxon alert. You're leaving the app. You're going away from Apple services. You're going to the end site. Oh dear, watch out! Isn't it?
Exactly.
Oh dear. I mean, this shouldn't be that difficult, really. Should it?
No. I wonder if I didn't see Apple going to charge you for this. Like, not the 27%, or maybe. I couldn't see anything around this. Because why would people, I suppose, the dating app isn't a reader app. Apple put those restrictions on there.
No, I think this is just part of the process, isn't it? I think, like you say, this is just part of the ability to go from the app to join, sign up for the service, or reset a password, or whatever the capability of going to the service gives you. But I don't think there was a charge. Well, at least there wasn't one publicized, I don't believe.
I'm just thinking, if you are the Spotifys and the Netflix, this is a way of not paying Apple. So you are getting it for completely free.
Well, are you though? Are you?
Well, I don't know. This is why I was asking. I couldn't see any figures on what Apple want for this.
Yeah, basically they're making the whole UI experience worse, aren't they? Because you have to jump through 3 hoops to get where, instead of clicking.
But mind you can't pay for Spotify within the iOS app.
No.
I don't think you can for Netflix and Kindle. You can't buy any books within the app. You have to go to the Kindle store and buy it that way.
I find that really frustrating, by the way, when I'm browsing the Amazon app, for stuff, and I see a Kindle book. Oh, great! I'd like to buy that.
It's the same as the Microsoft Store, isn't it? The Xbox app.
Don't.
I can't buy a game on there anymore. I used to be able to buy a game. I can't anymore.
It's so frustrating, that I have to say, so frustrating.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I don't see that changing anytime soon. But it is rather annoying. Anyway, well, Apple, I'm sure will drag their heels for another 6 months before they let you see this. Maybe at WWDC we might see some apps running it. Who knows?
What, no, live on stage?
No. No. With that. So, not only then is the US Department of Justice unhappy with Google, also it turns out then the Russian regulators are quite upset with Google. And, I have no sympathy here. I'm going to put that out straight away on
Me
this
neither.
request. So, the Russian communication regulator, Roskomnadzor, I butchered that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that one. The Russian communication regulator.
Yeah. So basically, like the FCC or the Ofcom here in the UK is threatening to fine Google the amazing sum of 8 million rubles. Or approximately 95,000 US, which will also increase to 20% of Google's annual revenue in a case of repeat offense. So what is the offense then? Well, apparently YouTube is promoting the distribution of false content, that was the quote, about what it calls the alleged special military operation. No, it's a war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And apparently they're discrediting Russia, aren't they? And they're promoting extremist content. Oh dear. I mean, I'm so upset. I'm so upset.
This is rather hypocritical, of a regime that thrives on misinformation and manipulation of the media.
Yep.
So now that someone's doing it to them, they're not happy.
No, they're not happy at all, and they don't want this taken down because actually, just whether obviously the grain of truth in whatever side is publishing which. But if you were to look at as you say, the campaign of misinformation that Russia has been publicizing regarding the war in Ukraine, it's not surprising that people want to display the truth of what's happening there. And some
their truth, at least, the other side of the story.
Yes, and certainly, in recent days there have been pictures and videos coming out of the Ukraine on what can only be described as war crimes, and I don't want to go into the details here, certainly, but which are atrocities. There's no other way of saying it, and the finger is squarely pointed at Russia. Now, the Russian people will never see those information.
Nope.
They're not going to see it, but the world needs to see it because it needs to be shown. So yeah, you're right. Russia doesn't want to have this information on YouTube. It doesn't want its people potentially getting access, and what it doesn't want actually is the rest of the world seeing it, does it? That's the problem.
No, they don't.
But I don't see. I'm sure the Google legal team, after they pick themselves off the floor from laughing themselves to death, are worried about paying the $95,000 US. Up to 20% of the revenue will come and get us. I think is probably a statement.
Not going to happen. I think this stems from a complaint they actually raised in mid-March, wasn't it? Well, they stated the actions of the YouTube administration are of a terrorist nature and threatens the life and health of Russian citizens. But don't a lot of the Russian citizens live in Ukraine that you're currently killing?
Don't go there.
Yes. I
know.
I think this is what got me. That they really oppose such advertising campaigns and require Google LLC to stop broadcasting anti-Russian videos as soon as possible. Hello, we're on the web. We don't really broadcast, we stream, and it's not Google doing it, they're just hosting it.
They're just hosting it. And you actually, if it wasn't, totally, if you were that upset about it, you'd make other complaints. But actually, considering that when a lot of these videos and, data that's coming out is independently verified, yeah, actually, it is you, So, yeah, welcome to warfare in the 21st century. It is no longer behind closed doors. It's not like, when back in the Second World War where you could slap a D notice on reporting and, the newspaper in the UK, for example, wouldn't be able to tell the story, would they? They wouldn't be able to report that information. Nope. And there was no other way of finding out. The only way you were going to find out something was perhaps from maybe, a service person or man coming back from whatever war zone and telling you the story. There was certainly no way of finding out. Yet the world we live in, is, somebody could drops a plate in Australia and Sydney, smashes a cup, and we can watch that video on TikTok 20 seconds later anywhere on the planet, can't we?
From 20 different angles and in 120 frames per second slow-mo.
Yeah, and the same thing applies to warfare. Nobody in the Ukraine, at least on the Ukrainian side, is going to let this go, and they're not going to want.
No.
They're not going to want any of these atrocities brushed under the carpet. So you know what, Russia? Actually, this week the rant is against you, and we have no sympathy for you on this one. So very sorry about that.
Not at all.
Anyway. So let's moving on to another cybersecurity story this week then, and one that I was a little tickled about actually when I saw it. So Wise, now when I say Wise, that's WYZE, and if anybody remembers, there's funky little square cameras that kind of popped up, didn't they? With a little, well, it's like a base out of legs, and I love them. I've got three of them here. They had
cheap.
The Wise Cam, yeah, they were cheap, really good little cameras. Great for kind of indoor security, did motion detection. But Wise kind of stopped selling them, didn't they? Without any reason whatsoever a little while ago.
Back at the beginning of the year, they discontinued the version 1 of their camera. Yeah. Version 2 and version 3 are still on sale. But yeah, they just out of the blue discontinued it and said there would be no more security or software updates.
Turns out, however, there's been a reason for that, though, wasn't there? A bit of a bad reason.
Yeah. I don't know where to start with this. I suppose we should start at the beginning 3 years ago. Apparently, it's Bitdefender, isn't it?
That's the
security company. They discovered some vulnerabilities in the Wise cameras and reported it to Wise back in, was it March 2019? So just over 3 years ago. And they included the ability to access the SD card remotely without any authorization. From that point, you could grab the encryption keys and then basically get access to the camera and view live and recorded footage without anyone knowing from the internet.
Oh dear.
So yeah, you would have thought, right, Bitdefender, they've announced this to Wise. Wise will get straight on fixing that. No, not so much. I mean, Wise didn't actually even respond to Bitdefender till November 2020, over 20 months later.
And their response was to pull the camera from sale, was it? That was it.
What? No, they didn't, because they only pulled it in this year.
Sorry. Yeah, well, that's the end game. I mean,
so that's another 14 months later. Yeah. So they released a patch in 2022, I should say, January, the start of this year, for the version 2 and version 3 cameras, but discontinued the V1 at that point and said there'd be no further updates. So they didn't release a security fix for the version 1 and didn't even tell any customers what the problem was they were or weren't fixing. So there are still an awful lot of the V1 cameras out there who people can just remotely take over.
So I patched all of my cameras with the Defang, DAFANG.
Defang, which is like a custom firmware, isn't it?
Yeah, which was really good because it kind of allowed you to take control of them. It also worked with Home Assistant as well, allowing you to pull, because they had an RTSP feed. Which you didn't get natively with the Wise cams as well. And they were really good. It was an insurance company, by the way, in the UK, Neo something, who were giving these cameras away as part of the insurance deal. So you got the camera, and it was custom. They had like a white labeled app that was all part of the insurance thing, and I got one of them through that, funnily enough. And when we finished having the house insurance with them, I just flashed the camera because you kept it. But they were only like 25 quid or something. They weren't really expensive cameras at all.
Yeah, not a lot at all. But then I suppose you're not paying for the security on them, a security response.
No.
So I mean, obviously, so Bitdefender have now came out. When was it? Back on the 29th of March, and I went public with the details 3 years later. I don't know why they didn't do it earlier, but maybe they just had enough was enough. I went went public with all the details, and even after that. Even Wise's latest statement to this doesn't actually tell you what the issue is.
Brilliant.
And doesn't say, those guys, one with the V1s, turn them off and put them in the bin right now.
But their statement, isn't it? Their spokesperson, what was it? What was the quote? We've been fully transparent with customers and have fully corrected the issue. No.
No, you haven't. And no, you haven't. No.
And again, no, you haven't. It's like, there's
No.
nothing to add here, gentlemen. You haven't been transparent whatsoever. In fact, you couldn't have been less transparent if you tried. Really, I don't think. Oh dear.
No, and we're not talking about devices like was it the Spectre meltdown, which security companies held back until all the patches were out because it was potentially too horrific to let people know, and the repercussions would have been massive. These are £20, £20 cameras.
Yeah.
They should immediately let people know. People could just unplug them
Yep.
and gone and bought something else, or waited for a patch and then patched it and put it back online.
Yeah.
We're not talking, hundreds of tens of £100 CPUs and stuff like that.
No, it's a very different kettle of fish, isn't it? To make disclosures on that. So yeah,
it's a very easy security mitigation. To unplug the camera.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like the CPU. Well, unplug your CPU. Oh yeah, okay then.
The rest of it doesn't work without that.
No,
yeah.
Very unprofessional. Very unprofessional from Wise at this point. But it's a shame, really, because like I say, they were good cameras. Just not a company I'd be looking to buy any more hardware off in the future.
No, definitely not.
So then, before we get to the rumor mill, which makes its welcome return again this week. Intel Arc. Well, we finally have some pictures, don't we, of the Arc? Woohoo! And particularly,
and there's even allegedly some shipping products.
And this is what we're talking about, just to be clear, not the mobile stock. We are talking about GPU. We're talking about the desktop GPU, which, yes, looks like a desktop GPU in the pictures, doesn't it? It's nice clean lines.
It's nothing shocking, is it? It's a GPU of a nice black shroud. They did release a nice video and some pictures. It's coming in summer 2022. But as a limited edition release, whatever that means, I think all GPUs are a limited edition release at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, one.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that was all they said. But that's all they officially said. It seems like they accidentally leaked some technical specs in one of their own videos for their Arc control software. So their Arc control software is like NVIDIA's GeForce Experience. It's ability where you can monitor and control the GPU. So in the video for that, one of their slides actually showed a screenshot of the Arc, and it was running on one of the latest GPUs. Now, it doesn't say what the actual GPU is, but it's suspected it's a top-of-the-line one. And we're seeing things like the GPU clocked at 2.2 gigahertz, so higher than generally you get with NVIDIA. Apparently its VRAM is clocked at 17.5 gigabytes a second. And it's actually not using too much power for once.
Whoa, hang on a minute.
It did show the GPU alone was using 175 watts. So likely it's around 200 watts or slightly over when you're taking the whole board. But that's way less than current, NVIDIA's current or upcoming cards. It could be up to 600 watts. So definitely more power efficient. I never thought I'd say that from Intel.
No, that's definitely what that was. Words that aren't in the same sentence, are they? With Intel power efficiency.
No.
So
yeah,
what have we got there? So just to kind of tech specs in from a hardware point of view, it's 3 display ports, HDMI port, isn't it? The shroud, as you say, is unlike the NVIDIA ones where it's got like the 3 fans across it. It seems to be more of either a mesh or a enclosed,
it's like a blower one. Is it?
It does look like that, doesn't it? More than anything else. And it's kind of what I can work out, for at least from the initial video, in that it appears to be double slot, doesn't it? A card as well.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So, I mean, pretty standard, as you say, in that sense. Nothing major in terms of shocking around it. But again, there's only so many ways you can build a GPU and put it in a PC. But it is coming. It is, say, summer. We don't have a specific date, but it's real. It does exist. And, maybe before the end of 2022, we may see some face-offs between the Arc, the Radeons, and the RTX, or, well, probably I'd say 30 series rather than 40, but potentially 40. But who knows at this rate?
Potentially, we'll see.
But that wasn't the only ones that they dropped, was it? They dropped the mobile ones as well.
They did the Arc A series GPUs for laptops, and Samsung is the first out of the door with, and they're going to be putting it in their Galaxy Book 2 Pros. But yeah, like their CPUs, they're going to have 3 series, 5 series, and 7 series, and we're only talking about the 3 series at the moment. But these are discrete GPUs for laptops, not the built-in ones.
No.
So they have actually gone and announced the A350M and the A370M are now shipping. And these are targeted at 1080p gaming at 60 or 90 frames per second in the range of popular games, whatever those popular games are. So it didn't really give an indication of how performance hungry those games are.
But nice looking. I mean, in terms of the specs that they've got there, isn't it? They're supporting GDDR6. They've got ray tracing capability. They're offering. They've got full driver support apparently on day one. As you say, so this is kind of looking at, like I say, the discrete graphics. So your kind of NVIDIA 10 series and 20 series that we see on some of the high-end gaming laptops. Wouldn't you agree? Probably not. Maybe more. I guess 10 series, I suppose, with the not quite 3 series yet to the other ones. But yeah, I think this is a good start. Nice to see full DX12 support, the super sampling, all the kind of things that we expected to see. Performance, obviously, at this stage of the game is unsure, but let's go for it. Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, they're getting DirectX 12 Ultimate out of the box. They're going to have their super sampling, ray tracing. They're getting full hardware acceleration of a number of codecs, including the new AV1. And that's up to 8K encoding and decoding, so of 10-bit HDR. So they seem quite good on the media engine side of things. They will be able to output a couple more displays than your Mac can. 2 8K displays at 60 Hz simultaneously, or 4 4K displays running at 120 Hz. So, or even a single 1440p at 360 Hz if you've got a screen that quick.
Well, I think that's pretty good.
That's a pretty good display output support. And I imagine there's probably some mix and match in between you can do with that one.
Well, I'd be happy with that on, on a laptop, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so for a laptop, definitely. That should be more than enough.
So, but that wasn't the only bit of information. No. So also we got some further details on their super sampling.
Before we go there.
Oh, go on.
Did you see the summary slide?
Was that the one that looked a bit like the Apple one with all of the...
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I've seen this before, just not in purple. It looks suspiciously like an Apple summary slide.
So if anybody's thinking what the guy's on about, so this is kind of, if you've seen the Apple announcements, recent ones, they bring up a slide with all of like the squares of all of the capabilities, don't they, of the product?
They do, yeah. At the very end, yeah.
And everybody seems to be doing this. So who did we see? Which was a mobile manufacturer we saw the other week that did it, didn't we? I can't remember. Basically, everybody's taking that kind of UI, aren't they now? And
they are
shoving it all over. It looks nice though. The colours worked, I thought.
The colours do work. It does look good. I just thought I've seen this somewhere before.
Yeah, you're like, I know this is definitely something I've seen before. Yeah.
But sorry to interrupt you. You were saying about the last announcement.
No. I was just going to say. So the other thing that they dropped as well, some leaked information has come out, isn't it, around the Arc GPU and their XeSS, which is their super scaling capability then, so which is one of the key kind of features of the new Arc GPUs, isn't it? But we're not going to be getting that anytime soon then. It apparently then won't be available until early summer, whatever that kind of stresses, soon is.
But I suppose that's along with the rest. We've only got the 3 series laptop GPUs today. Everything else seems to be coming summer at some point.
Yeah, I would say, I was just going to say, it does seem to be tied in, doesn't it, to the desktop release more than that. But yeah, so...
It does. It's a shame though, because the 3 series GPUs sound like they need it the most.
Well, I was going to say you could probably use that to get better capability. So very similar to NVIDIA's DLSS, which is their upscaling capability, isn't it? That they've got. So I think I'm sure I read somewhere, isn't it, that this covers the majority. The support for this is across the majority of their cards, isn't it? Apart from the lower end ones. But yeah, definitely, it's a capability we want. What we've seen from NVIDIA and the DLSS capabilities have shown some decent improvements across a lot of games. So I'm guessing that, along with, what's the one from AMD? Fidelity FX, is that it? Is that...
Yeah, super resolution.
Or something Again, though, gives an improvement in game capability, frame rate uprates, doesn't it? It does look good, especially on older games. So I'm sure I'm sure Intel are going to want to play in that space, and we'll have similar capabilities. But early summer, so May, June, I'm guessing then is early summer.
Yeah, I think so.
Right then. So it's that time of the day again. Well, Carl, I know you are always eager to give us the latest from the Tech Rant Rumour Mill, and this week is no exception. So, what have you got for us this week then?
Well, nothing too revolutionary this week, I'm afraid. But those rumours of the folding iPhone are not going away.
No?
So we have our favourite analyst, Mr. Ming-Chi Kuo. I'll get this wrong every single time. I apologise.
I'm so sorry.
But yeah, as you mentioned, he's now on Twitter. So the predictions and stuff's become a bit more free-flowing, aren't they?
They are. He's a little bit more regular than his newsletter that he used to publish, wasn't it? From the company, from his consultancy firm, around all his updates.
Yeah.
But so yes, his updates then. So this folding iPhone, really.
Yeah. Well, he's revised his prediction. So he was saying last year that it could be as soon as 2024. But he's now saying this will be 2025 at the earliest, and it may not actually be an iPhone. It may really be a foldable iPad or a hybrid iPad and iPhone. But isn't that really what just a folding phone is? If it's anything like Samsung's Fold 2, it's a phone that unfolds into a tablet.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Unless we're thinking they'd make it like the, what's the the Flip?
Oh, yes, I'm with you.
But I'd always assumed it'd be more like an iPhone that just opened up in the middle and turned into an iPad mini.
This also, though, is kind of corroborated, though, isn't it, by Ross Young, who's the guy from, is it the display
analyst guy?
Display analyst guy who also said about screen. So kind of what the collaboration here, I guess, on the point is that, yes, the screen tech is probably there, and that's what Apple are waiting for, I think, is until the screen tech is absolutely matching what they want to do, I don't think they'll do it.
No, I think there is still issues as such with the technology. I mean, the ones I've seen, you can still quite often see a crease down the middle, and that's just not Apple, is it?
No, I think personally Apple could do it. I just think, though, unlike Samsung and that, they're not rushing here. They want to make sure that this thing will be perfect and that the display capabilities, all that stuff, are going to be there. And that means that we've got to wait for several iterations of the technology to go through. Unlike Samsung, who basically kicked out the door and were like, well, you can beta tester for us if you pay £500 or £1,500, sorry. You could be a beta tester, basically. And I don't think Apple want to be that, do they? Apple want products that define a market. And sometimes that means not necessarily being first.
And they don't need to do it at the moment. People are still buying their phones. They don't need to be that cutting edge.
No, of course they don't. They don't need, not at all. But yeah, I suppose it will happen. Whether Quo is correct, 24, maybe, it's still 2 years away. Yeah, it's not, I guess, unrealistic. Will I buy one? No, I have no interest in that at all. Unless it is absolutely blow your mind, stunning at the moment.
I'm kind of intrigued by one.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Yeah, you'll be at the shop lining up.
Yeah. Come on, so what else have we got there from? Because Quo, I'm guessing, has been busy here.
He has indeed. He's been all over Twitter. But yeah, so he's questioning his prediction on undisplayed Touch ID, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He was originally saying 2023, 2024 to have that back in the iPhone, but he's now predicting it won't return at all. He's going to say that Face ID with the mask detection, which is what built into iOS 15.4, is already a great biometric solution, and he doesn't see Apple actually bringing in Touch ID to the phone again.
No, I don't think they will. I said this to you when we were talking about the show notes.
Well, yeah.
I don't see why they do it, because, as you say, as far as they're concerned, Face ID is a more superior technology. Face ID works now when you're wearing a mask. You've also got the dual verification, if you want, of wearing an Apple Watch, so you don't need to touch a phone. Touch ID, I guess, is seen as the cheaper option, hence the reason why it's on those other products. And I guess to a funny degree. It works better on a keyboard, like with the Macs, with the M1 Max. Which do you know what? If it wasn't so blooming expensive, I really would fancy one of the keyboards. Because that'd be really useful. I could just see it now; it would save me a lot of time. But for the phones, Face ID is a superior piece, and I agree with you. I don't think they will. I just don't see them doing it now, unless there's a real compelling issue. But I agree with Quayle on this one. I think not a U-turn, a backtrack from his statement is legitimate.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think you're right. I kind of agree. I don't think they're going to bring it back. Part of me would like to see it maybe just in the power button, like the iPad Air and the iPad Mini. And it's just for those situations where Face ID doesn't work or is a bit of a pain, recently we had massive problems with face masks. I've not actually tried the detection with the face mask on since. I've not set that one up. But sometimes if I'm in bed and I'm lying down, I have to strain my head to get the Face ID to see my entire face. It'd be great just to have a button there. Or you could just use it to enhance security. If you can authenticate with Face and Touch ID for really sensitive information or processes, then that's an extra layer of security, I think.
I don't disagree with you. But
I don't think Apple will do it. Not at all. It's just me wishing.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it's a bad point. But I think he's right. It's not coming back. Then they're not going to do it.
No.
I don't think you could argue, it's less insecure if you're wearing a mask. Maybe, but there's still got to be markers there that they are picking up. I don't think Apple would have just made it super easy to unlock your phone with a mask on, given all of their stance on privacy. I don't know
how long it took to come out as well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more to it than people realize. But critics will always try and poke holes in things. And that's fair enough.
I think Face ID and Touch ID both have pros and cons in different situations. As I said, it'd be nice to see both, but I think they're just going to stick with Face ID.
Yeah, I think definitely they are. Definitely. Well, that's probably a good place for us to wrap up today then. So, of course, you can find us online at techrant.online. We're on Twitter at Weekly TechRant. And, of course, wherever you get your podcast, you can find us. So tell your friends, share, leave us a review, do whatever you wish. Any good news is news, as we think. But we'll be back next week for episode 83 of the Weekly Tech Rant with all of the latest tech stories and news for you. And with that, I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good evening, all.